Welcome to the Grit Growth Podcast. Commit to conquer, lead your life, leave a legacy, gather your grit, and let's get after it.
Yeah, do you want to just kick it off, Erik, with a little background about who you are, what you do?
Sure. So Erik Anderson, not originally from Gainesville, grew up in South Florida, came to Gainesville to go to school, met my awesome wife, Casey, who's from here, and stayed ever since. So I've been here for 20 years now, which is crazy. Came up in 2002. Been in construction basically my whole life. Started out back in Palm City working for a home builder. Thought I wanted to be an architect, and then kind of landed on the commercial construction industry through meeting folks along the way and through my track in university. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
With your smoking hot wife?
Yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah, I definitely married up. I tell her that all.
Sorry, I had to go a little Talladega Nights on that one.
I recommend it. I remind her of that all the time. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I definitely married up.
So how has it been living with that? We talk about grit. I mean, it has to be hard, with your stature, standing next to her. I mean, how do you deal with that every day?
Yeah, I just know that I'm a lot uglier than her. It's easy.
So do you make her look better, or does she make you look worse?
Both.
Marriage is compromise. You got to meet in the middle.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the quick, down and dirty how I got here. But, in general, what I'm really kind of focused in on now, and a lot of this kind of comes with good time with what you guys are trying to discuss with Grit, is really now becoming a business owner in the recent past over the last few years, and just really trying not to get my priorities out of whack. I mean, all jokes aside, I think it's easy as an entrepreneur, business owner, or just even somebody that's just on a path of a driven career to not put their family first. And that's just something that I'm really trying to prioritize. I haven't gotten my priorities out of whack completely yet, and I don't plan to, but I've really trying to make that a strong focus of you putting my family first and making sure that, everything business-wise is, somewhat in the back seat. And first and most important relationship I have is with my wife. And we've been married now for about 14 years, and she puts up with me. I don't know how she does it. It's, probably something she's working on daily as far as having to deal with me every day. But
we'll talk to her next.
Good. So she'll tell you the same thing. She wonders, and now there's a carbon copy of me and my 7-year-old. So she didn't think the world could really, do more than one Erik, and now we've probably got one in the making. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, well, look, so Grit, on my perspective and my whole platform is it's every bit as much personal as it is in business, right? And you part of living a fulfilled life means living a balanced life. I break my personal endeavors down into 4 quadrants. You got physical, people, personal, and professional. And it should be about a 25% split each in my mind. So how do you balance it all the balls in the air?
I think for me, it kind of goes more deeply on purpose. I think it's an easy, that's a quick test for me. If something's not life-giving in my book, I kind of cut it out. What I do every day, do I love it every day? Not every day, but do I love being here and the impacts that I have with the people that I work with and my team and seeing them grow and going through some of those challenges and kind of seeing that whole thing come together. That's why I come here every day. And it's kind of the same way with my family. Like there's definitely been some peaks and valleys. For Casey and I, the biggest thing that probably, solidified our grit was probably the hardest thing we've ever went through, which was having kids. A lot of people don't know that we struggled, but we did. I mean, this past weekend actually would have been in 2011. So it would have been celebrating an 11-year-old's birthday. It was one of the miscarriages that we had. And it was tough. It sucked. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Even for a guy, she was obviously enduring a lot more pain than I was, but there were times where people were like, man, I know, there's only a little part of you. She's dealing with all the physical trauma with that and all the emotional trauma with that. And it was hard. And so I think that a hard thing like that you go through, that for a woman is kind of one of those things that, now it's become more and more common. I think 1 out of 8 pregnancies is a miscarriage. And so she just felt like, she didn't have anybody to talk to. And we felt like we were broken, and it was hard. And fast forward now, I can't imagine not having the family that we do, with a 7-year-old boy and 5-year-old boy, now an almost 1-year-old boy. And, things happen for a reason. That's, to me, my faith is a strong part of what I do every day. And, it's just one part of God's plan for us to have that child. And maybe someday we'll cross paths in heaven if that's, the way things are supposed to be. But that's how I think, from our relationship and anything that we've done and anything that's had an impact in my life that's created any grit, has been through some really difficult season. And a lot of them more private than public. That struggle that you go through, and the only way that you can get through it is by leaning into those people that you really love. And that at my time was my wife, and of course our family. And we went through, it was really, the first one was a miscarriage that was pretty far along, but the second one was minor. And then, you kind of go through that emotional roller coaster where you get your hopes up, you don't want to tell anybody, you kind of keep, you got these safe zones. I mean, everybody knows who's had kids. You kind of rock through it of that 10 to 12 weeks. And then you go through all the stuff of ultrasounds, that whole rigmarole. The one thing I'll say, not only has that tied Casey and I pretty much, to a whole new level of our relationship, and made, our kind of grit and being able to get through anything together, but it's also allowed her to side with a lot of other people in the community that don't realize that she's been through that. And typically at our church, whether it's a message that our pastor's preaching about or something that somebody hears about. And that's what you need in those hard times, right? It's like the other people have been through that before. And I really, truly believe that's the reason that we went through it. And I've talked to, more guys than I can remember that have been through that. And that was just part of our journey. So that was probably at about 5 years after we were married. We finally, got into being able to get past some of that. And then, come about 2 years later, we got pregnant. And then the second one was, almost immediate. And the third one, we just had to look at each other. So it was, all part of it. I would never change it. I mean, it was a hard thing to go through. It sucked. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But now, it's made our relationship a lot stronger. And then as we kind of look back on some of those things in marriage that really kind of the core foundation of our marriage and our relationship, and made our family as closely connected as they are, a lot of that's just built on the foundation that Casey and I have, just being, kind of an unbreakable bond. Plus, going back a little bit further, of kind of how some of that was developed was really through both of our families. So I kind of jumped a little bit further ahead, but both of our families were divorced and remarried. So that was something I think Carson, you and I, talked about, just to try to, explain a little bit of the family dynamic, because I feel like everybody's family is probably a lot more complicated and a lot more screwed up than maybe people want to admit. And so our family is definitely that, divorced, remarried. I've got half stepbrothers, stepsisters, every make, model under the sun, ages, you name it. And it was crazy at times. I mean, I'm younger, trying to figure all that out. But what it's made from a commitment level for our marriage is that, and we joked about Casey, and I don't know how she deals with me some days, because I definitely drive her crazy. But it's a lifetime commitment, and that's pretty much it. There's no two ways about it. And I think a lot of that, again, was just by some of the things that maybe we went through when we were younger, when we saw our parents get divorced, and just anything and everything that you can, imagine with that process. So again, really difficult event, kind of, builds your, I guess, resilience and tolerance and everything else along with it to kind of get, your grit muscle ironed out, and then you kind of get through anything.
Yeah, the struggle is what builds the strength, right? There's no easy button. There's no skipping the suck. You just have to be able to withstand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of went through that, Eric, with relying on each other. So relationships gives you strength. You talked about religion giving you strength. You talked about, again, lean on the people you love, if I kind of paraphrase that properly. But can you break that down even further? What does that give you to keep going? I mean, you're leaning on people, you have your faith, you have your loved ones. What are they providing for you to stay steady, to keep putting one foot in front of the other, to be there for others, even like you talked about within your church, being there to help help others out eventually?
Sure. So I think for me, when it comes to like quality of life and success and the things that kind of keep me going and back to kind of that purpose, I mean, a purpose-driven mindset, I think there's really three things in order to kind of hit for me on those high notes. You have to, first and foremost, like you say, you have to have something or someone, hopefully someone that you love. So you have to have that in the equation. You have to have something to do. So I think that's some of the rhythms of just, it's good to have discipline. It's good to have, some healthy routines, but it's also good to break those too, I think at times, which we could discuss that. And then I think you have to thirdly, and I think you need really all three. And the third one to me, which I think is probably the most challenging, is you got to always have something to look forward to. And so we've got things on our calendars, things that we do, Casey and I do, that we do together. They're routinely, whether it's a date night or it's a family vacation or it's, going through some sort of marriage, whatever. If it's a study that we do through our church or something that she comes across, or it's like a podcast that she says, hey, this is a really good teaching tool that we can work through together so that we can get better. And what I found out with my 7-year-old, which is crazy, I never really thought about it like this, but with Beckett, who's very similar to me, and I'll talk about him a lot because it's basically talking about myself. And now I'm at the point with him where we're trying to find things that, from like a physical world, I'm older than him, whatever. There might be, like, to use it from a sports analogy, if him and I play basketball, I'm probably going to beat him in basketball. But recently he's picking up piano. I don't know how to play piano, and I've always wanted to learn how to play the piano. So he's taking piano lessons, and I'm kind of doing some piano lessons too. But ultimately, he's doing something, and I'm learning something with him, and he's better than me at it. And I just feel like those are things that in my life that have been big time, like eye openers, where things just make sense. And rather than, trying to be so scripted and forecast and, I guess try to get ahead of the curve, there's things that I can do with him now that he's going to be able to do that are actually better than me. And he could probably teach me to do them even when he's 7 years old. So that's what really drives me, is just to be able to have those kind of fun moments with him and with anything. I'm using him as a specific example because that's the most recent, but that kind of stuff happens the most for me. And I think back to your question of kind of what keeps me moving forward, it's definitely the purpose. I mean, that's why I come here every day. I mean, sure, the company doing well is great, having the financial means to do things and build wealth and build a company and being able to, pay for kids' college educations and that kind of stuff is great. But I don't think that really fulfills the purpose. That stuff's all temporary. The long term is truly the bigger, the better. Seeing those people that work with me just have major changes in their lives, buying a house, having a kid, learning a new language, the things that have no monetary value. And that's what keeps me going and has kind of somewhat of that infinite, forward thinking drive for me.
I mean, can you define that purpose?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hearing it. I'm hearing the word purpose. Seeing people within your organization growing,
right.
Helping others. But is there
a mantra Terry, that you say to yourself? Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Not really. I mean, I can't probably articulate put on the wall vinyl. That's actually something that we've tried to work through, and people get caught up kind of in the details of what's the difference between purpose, what's mission, what's this and that. So I think we've kind of stalled out on some of that. But really, I mean, overall, if you had to just say like, hey, what is that purpose? I would say it's pouring into other people and just making their lives better. I think with that, to me, if I can be more outward and giving more people, and I read a quote the other day, it says that, nobody's ever gone broke from giving away. And I think there's a lot of power in that. There's not. I mean, if you just try to have that service mindset and make, the encounters that you have with other people better, I think you won't ever, for one, you'll never it's like that infinite mindset. You won't ever get to the finish line. You won't ever get there. And I don't think you'll ever really do anything that you're going to regret. You're going to ultimately have, things kind of aligned in the right direction to where, you're having a positive impact on them. You're enriching their lives. And in return, it's probably coming back to you tenfold. You just don't realize it.
So if I equate this back to what you do, right? So, I don't know if we said it earlier, but you're in construction.
Yeah.
You're typically subcontract to larger general contractors. Your business performs a specific scope of work, but your purpose isn't necessarily to build things. Your purpose is to build people.
Yep.
Am I hearing that right?
Right.
So you've taken what you do and almost redefined it into the purpose you want out of your life, which then translates back to building your business. Because if you're building the people around you, making their lives better, they're actually building, and it's not your intention. That's what makes it true. Is it's not, there's no ill will. You're truly authentic in wanting people to be better, but that also helps your business be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you can, there's obviously some people that get that more than others, and that's a really hard thing to kind of push down in an effect. The guy that's running a screw gun that's attaching something to the wall. We remind our team of it all the time, but sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. More and more lately, over the last couple of years, we're really trying to push more of that purpose-driven mindset, and it goes along the lines of having that positive culture and having people that want to stay engaged and want to do things for the right reason. But as simple as for what we do, like you said, Matt, we are a subcontractor and we do specialties. So our specialties world is kind of a broad range, but we do a lot of things in healthcare facilities. And when you talk about purpose and what we do, there's lives that are changing on many levels that people don't realize after we leave. So if we're going into an OR, right, where they're not as an operating room and we're hanging a cubicle curtain track and we're putting all these unfurnished items on the walls, our guys may think at the time, hey, I'm just putting a fastener, through this device and attaching it to this wall. But on a much grander scale, whatever that device is on the wall, it could be either saving someone's life. It could have, it could have an impact well beyond what they would ever think. And we try to remind people that because we do a lot of healthcare work. And I think when people take a step back, that does two things. I think it makes people realize that is as monotonous as the head down grind may be, and I'm just fastening things to the wall and putting up corner guards and handrail crash rope, because we do a lot of wall protection too. What's the bigger impact? And a lot of times when you're there, you don't know what it'll be, but I think that's what's so fascinating about it is you won't ever know what it'll be, but you know that it'll be more important and have a larger impact than you just put that thing on the wall. So we're trying to get more of that kind of conversation going, but it's tough. I mean, we're in an industry where a lot of that warm and fuzzy type conversations, just, the crew level guys, the team level guys, the guy that is putting the screw gun on the wall, which is fine. There may be one, sour grape amongst the group, but the guy that does get it, he's going to stick around because he knows that there's purpose at MGT, and it's not just all about the screw gun running into the wall. So I think from a long-term perspective, that purpose is extremely important. It's important in my daily life, my personal life, my home life, my faith, my business. Purpose is not my word this year, but spoiler alert for 2023, it is. My word this year that I'm kind of latched on to, which we can talk about, the one-word campaign. My word this year is discipline. So I struggle with a little ADD, and I'm like, so being disciplined for me is important. It's not so much about being regimented as it is about being disciplined and doing things to a healthy level consistently, and making things habitual. And it's hard when you have 3 kids and a business and undiagnosed ADD.
What were we talking about?
Yeah, exactly. But
Self-medication.
She jokes all the time. She's like totally like scatterbrained ADD in me out. You're squirrel. She calls it squirreling out.
Yeah,
you're squirreling out on me.
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we talked a lot about the business purpose there, but I think early on you touched on a little bit more personal purpose, and how do those two compare? Are they the same, or are they just symbiotic, or what's the difference?
I'd say they're very similar. My personal purpose, they have the similar components. Like when I talk about trying to have a positive impact and really, watch people grow, make people better. And I really, as cliche as it sounds, I don't think there's any neutral in interaction. I think you can either help somebody or hurt somebody, and that's how I try to go through life. I can easily be a jerk and cut somebody down and probably make their day a whole lot more miserable than it maybe or probably already is. Or I could have a positive impact in somebody's life and maybe just be somebody to talk to, or I don't know, tell them that you like their hat, or give them a compliment, or do something that's going to be a positive interaction with somebody that I don't know. So from a personal perspective, it's the same thing. Just trying to have more of an outward service mindset. And that's in my marriage. That's one big thing. Casey's Uncle Chuck, her wedding. And that was a big takeaway for me, as you just said, when you talk about balance, you know, in a marriage, you want it to be out of balance. You want to try to outserve the other person. And I talk about that a lot. Like, marriage isn't a game, so don't keep score. Casey's heard me say that 1,000 times. You know, there's certain things, a lot, you know, even little, you know, trivial things around the house, right? Like, if I'm normally the guy that unloads the dishwasher, I'm probably going to be the guy that unloads the dishwasher. But if she gets there and the dishwasher is full and it's clean, she's going to unload the dishwasher. You know, things like that that sound trivial and sound kooky, but the reality is, if you can't figure that out and get in a rhythm to where you're trying to constantly, especially with somebody that you love and you care about, constantly outserve them, I just think that, you know, it probably won't end well. And so we really try to do that with each other. Outserving one another is a big thing for us. And I think that's kind of along the same lines of what I was saying before, of having a positive impact on other people. Because if you're ultimately have that service mindset where, you know, you're truly trying to be there for that person and do as much as you possibly can to help them in whatever way they can, which gets clumsy at times too, because, you know, most guys are control freaks. So I tell Casey I'm a recovering control freak, because sometimes I think I want to help her by solving a problem, and that's not helping her. You know, if she comes to me and wants to talk about something, it's really difficult for me to just sit there and listen and just empathize rather than saying, oh yeah, I got, you know, here's 3 solutions. Let's, you know, she doesn't want to talk to me about that.
It's not about the nail.
No, exactly. Yeah.
If you haven't seen that one, look it up. It's not about the nail.
Exactly. And at that end of that video, that's priceless. I saw it not long ago. The guy's finally like, yeah, you know, honey, that just looks like that hurts.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you. Exactly. It's not about the nail. She watched that too and was laughing more than I was. Awesome.
Now, did you always have the service mindset? Did you always have the positive outlook? Were there years in your life or days in your life that maybe you cut the other guy down?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's still days that I still do. I mean, I think
what's changed?
I'd say becoming a parent. Yeah, big game changer for me. Just realizing that, you know, back to making people better, kind of back to that purpose. Like, I feel like my kids are like my disciples to some degree. If I can make them better than who I am, I've done it. Like, that's my ultimate end goal. And from a purpose standpoint, if I can see the 3 of them on a scale of just being good people and having a strong faith and a lot of the kind of core values, which I can talk to you a little bit about that too, from a core value basis. But if they can do that, what I do a little bit better than I'm doing it, I feel like that's a win. And that's what's changed for me. I mean, pre-kids, man, that's why God didn't let us have kids for so long. I needed a lot of work. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I was probably a jerk. I mean, I probably would have come off as a really sarcastic, and at times I still can be, you know. I think that's easy. I think it actually is more difficult to be a kind person and love people. I think it's easy to just spout off and just be like, whatever, whether it's a sarcastic remark or it is, you know, having a negative interaction with somebody. That's the easy button. And so I think as I've grown, as I've gotten older, and probably aligned my priorities a little differently and realized, you know, that if you just take a step back and kind of breathe and unpack a situation as opposed to just immediately reacting with a response that may be a bad thought in your head, then you're probably going to end up coming out much better than if you just blow up on somebody.
Yeah.
Did you realize a new sense of responsibility with the kids?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think,
I mean, is that part of that shift of all of a sudden you're leading by example?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely things that I don't, you know, character traits I don't want them to pick up on, you know, if there's habits and more than ever, and they absorb it more than I've ever realized. I mean, even in the tone of my voice, a few days ago, I was working late. Casey called me and picked up the boys, and I didn't know she had Beckett. And I was talking to her kind of monotone, kind of quietly, was trying to finish something here at the office, and like laser focused, I think, on an estimate or proposal. I don't remember what it was. And Beckett speaks up in the background and he says, "Daddy, are you okay?" And I'm like, oof. And I said, "Yeah, buddy, I'm fine." And he's like, "Why are you talking like that?" And I mean, that was just one of those moments where I'm like, he totally reads me. He doesn't see me right now. He just heard probably like 12 sentences out of my mouth, and he knows exactly at that moment. And I was fine, but he knew that, you know, I was
different.
Yeah, something was going on there, and he didn't like it. He was concerned, and it was good. It was good, you know. I think there's little things like that happen that, whether they're big or small, that just kind of help you stay in alignment. There's a certain parameter set up that I feel like you shouldn't deviate beyond to keep you where you need to be and stay balanced and live a healthy lifestyle. And that's one of them. And priorities is more important than ever for me, especially with kids. So,
yeah, it seems like, at least for me, growing and maturing and having the self-awareness to check your ego and realize how you come across. That's like, especially for men, I think that can be like a brick wall of self-awareness, right? That you run into one day. At least that's kind of how it seems now in hindsight. Do you think that has come naturally to you, or is that something that develops along the way?
I think it's something that develops along the way. I think, and Matt's seen this earlier in my career, and some of the feedback that Matt actually gave me, whether he realizes he did or not, I think they almost train you to do that. I'm not trying to blame it on somebody else, but I think coming out of school and coming out of BCN, most guys with that drive do have some ego, and you do have a little gumption. You have to have some confidence. But the feedback that Matt gave me time and time again, maybe does remember this, when we would sit down after running a meeting, which most of the time for interacting with clients at that time, I'm in my early 20s, I'm 38 now. People in those meetings are 2-3 times your age, and you just feel like you got to kind of flex a little bit and let these people know you know what you're talking about. And Matt would tell me, like, you don't need to do that. Like, if anything, these people need to know that you don't know what you're talking about. Like, come in with some confidence and just prove it in what you provide. But you don't need to come in with that chip on the shoulder, kind of
You have to win every battle.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I think that just comes with age and maturity. I think when you're in your early 20s and you're fired up and you think you're just ready to conquer the world, you're ready to run through a brick wall. And some of that comes out in just your body language, your stature, your tone, all that. And there's maybe a time and place for that, but it's not sustainable. And usually the reaction isn't good. Ego is probably the worst thing that I think can get in the way. Like, Jacko says, no ego, all in. That's a good mantra from Extreme Ownership. I mean, if you took that in, day out, and just said, I'm going to come at this, approach life from a complete, humble, no ego. I mean, I don't think you can really screw that up.
Yeah. Well,
and I was gonna say, I mean, it's before you mentioned that, it's hearing both of you, and what people probably don't know is how long we've known each other, and that we've all worked together, at certain points. But it's pretty awesome for me to sit here being the elder now at 49, but listening to y'all and kind of where you are as parents, the path you've traveled, the check your ego at the door, service, type leadership. I mean, Carson, same there. I mean, it's just, the biggest thing that can get in the way. And how can I help the youth? How can I help others out there? And I think, to steal your phrase, Eric, with the spit and vinegar, coming out and wanting to conquer the world or run through the wall. I know Carson's the same way, and we all are to a point, but I think you learn through experience. There's probably different paths to take. And sometimes you can build a doorway in the wall versus run through it, and you can knock and you can be let through it. And that's a much better path than the destruction created when you run through it and knock it down.
Yeah. For
yeah.
sure.
When you're fresh, and young, and especially like we talked about with high school age and entry level, career starting age, that should be a curiosity phase where you're discovering, where do you fit? What do you like? Who do you work well with and who do you not? The personality types, the birds, the curiosity phase is the time to grow and learn, and going into it with that mindset of accepting constructive criticism, it could be the most critical thing. Your own ego can hold you back so easily if you can't see it.
Yeah. I don't think people talk about that enough, like that fine line between confidence and ego.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You gotta have it. You gotta obviously be able to walk the walk, but you don't have to walk with your chest out. You don't have to just come in there with this. You can prove it. It's a lot better to just lead by your actions, whatever way you want to put it. I mean, everybody's seen people that are on somewhat of a power trip, and it stifles everything, kills the curiosity, it shuts down all engagement. I mean, everybody's been in the room where it's the guy that's trying to prove everybody that he's the smartest guy in the room, and you probably don't hear from anybody but him.
Yeah.
It's not, and probably that person probably isn't going to end up having a whole lot more of those discussions because nobody wants to be around that. It's just not a healthy, productive environment.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of people. I don't know who said it, but I've heard it a lot of different times that if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find a different room, right? Because you're limiting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's, a lot that can be taken from that and then applied to grit. And I think sometimes when you say grit growth, get after it, it sounds very hard charging, and at the same time, it's not necessarily meant to crash through the wall. The idea is it's a self-driven ability to also hear others, understand others, collaborate, not be the smartest, to ultimately better yourself, and having the humility to not have to prove that point, but let someone else live it and promote it, even though you might have whispered in their ear. That's a great place to be, and how you're helping people mature, like you're saying there, Eric. When you're passing the grit on to others, right? I mean, isn't that kind of ultimate purpose, right? Passing that on to others, like you're saying, and that you see them helping others succeed. It's pretty awesome.
It is.
I'll sit in this seat watching you guys, saying it's awesome watching you guys.
Yeah, well, since we were talking about early on in the careers, and for anybody who listens who's just starting out, Eric, jump in here if you agree or disagree, but I would say, having that leadership and mentoring in the early years from someone who, number one, is honest and willing, to give constructive criticism in a healthy way and not, just throw their chest out and throw their ego around. But I mean, that was pivotal for me, to say the least. So I would encourage anybody who doesn't have a mentor, that might be on that journey. You got to find one. You got to find somebody, even if it's not the exact field, if it's remotely related, you got to have it.
Yep. Totally agree. It's something I was a little late to the game on and really didn't understand kind of that mentorship relationship right away. I mean, I think you have some mentors in your life that you kind of probably come across and it's not really intentional or by design. And then you have other people that I think that you do connect with on another level. And then it is that rhythm, back to some of that discipline where, for my faith, it's a small guys group that I get together with, that we've gotten together with. I saw you on Wednesday morning, Carson. You see us in there, Maple Street. I mean, that's a group led by our pastor that's not been there a lot of the times because schedule conflicts and other guys have kind of come and go. And so those guys, it's kind of that iron sharpens iron mentality. And I strongly agree. I mean, if you, I think the worst teachers, is being self-taught. So if you could find somebody else that's going to, pour into you, and even if you're hesitant, to ask that person, like maybe that's something that you're scared of, like, who are you going to ask? How are you going to ask? I think most people would be pleasantly surprised that if you ask somebody to mentor you, more than likely they're going to, do it with probably a lot more willingness and excitement than you would expect. And I would challenge those folks that don't have that and different, and look for different types of mentors for different parts of their life too. Things that are important to them. If it's somebody at their church or somebody at their home, or a friend of theirs that they've seen that's taking interest in something that can make their life better. I don't think you can get very far without one. And if you want to continue to kind of grow and have people ask those honest questions that nobody else is probably ever going to ask you, other than probably a therapist. I agree. A mentor is a must at any age.
Yeah. Well, look at like Michael Jordan. No matter how good he got, he always had a coach, right?
Yeah.
Tom Brady, I don't know how many Super Bowl rings he's got, but he still has a coach, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same.
Well, and I'll say I remember when I was in my 30s looking at working out with a group and seeing the guys in their mid 40s going, man, I hope I can be doing that when I'm in my mid 40s, and much less in my 50s. And, here I am on the crest of 50, and working out with both of y'all, on a weekly basis. And what you probably don't realize is how much I learned from you guys in our discussions too, and how you're handling situations, and how you're handling technology, and how you're handling investments, and how you look at it at your age. And, are there ways I should be looking at it differently, at my age, that, again, I'm in a mindset that is somewhat removed from yours generationally, but at the same time, is my mindset right? I don't know. So listening to you, you don't realize you're mentoring me through this all now, through this too. And it's one of those things you always are kind of looking up as you're going through your career, and you're kind of at that point in your mid 30s where all of a sudden you get to 40 and you go, man, now all of a sudden I'm getting mentored from both below and above.
Awesome.
I've got people I look up to that are still mentoring me, they're in their careers and further along, but now I've got, folks that I hang out with like y'all that are mentoring me from below. And so it's a cool place.
It is.
All right, I just kind of stymied the conversation with that one.
Yeah. We're like, I'm just pondering that. It's like, wow, because I think, man, I hope I can do that when I'm Matt's age. And it's, yeah.
Well, it's funny because you look at your parents, you say, okay, they've been where I've been, but they've never been where they're at. Right. But you think they're experienced at being where they're at because they're older than you. Yeah, they're experienced where I'm at right now, but they're not experienced where they're at. And so, it's one of those things that I kind of struggle with now. It's like when I turned 40, I'm like, I didn't feel like I thought I would feel when I turned 40. Right. To be quite honest, I thought I'd be more mature. I really didn't feel that mature. But even coming on 50, I'm like, I'm starting to kind of feel 50. I'm like, I can't do some of those things I used to be able to get away with, because now I'm just like the creepy old guy. So does that work still? I don't know.
We might not be the right guys to give you feedback on that.
Right, exactly. Oh man, but when I'm my dad's age, do I get away with it again? I don't know. We'll see.
For sure.
But I mean, if you have your interns there, Erik, and I say interns, that the group that you're working with, and he gets done with she gets done with the internship with you at the end of the summer. I mean, what advice do you leave them with?
Make sure that where you end up, you're around people that you like. I said it again today. There's a guy that's a new hire. He came out of the program. He's early 20s, and he was an intern with us for a couple of years. He actually accepted a full-time position, which is awesome. We've had 3 now that have been interns through our company that have accepted full-time. And even at the career fair, like if we go to a career fair, if we go to any other interaction where I'm around young people, I just really try to say that. People that see me are like, oh, it's the guy that's going to say, end up around people with like, which I really do think the reason is that, it goes back to that quality of life and purpose. If you think that you're going to just change the people that you're working with over time, you're probably not. You're in the wrong place. You're going to be spending more time with those people at work than you are with your family. And you really need to be the right fit. So find that place where you're the right fit. And it may take more than one shot. You end up in one spot, you feel like you're the wrong fit, keep looking. Don't just think you're going to fit, because you're probably not, and they're not going to change. Similarly, I think to any high quality or long lasting relationship, it's got to be the right fit. So that's my advice: is just end up where you fit in the most, and where those people around you, because you're going to see them more than you probably realize, are people that you want to be around.
Yeah, that's solid advice for sure. Well, that's part of that curiosity phase too, right? If you just never dabble and never explore, it's opportunity cost. You never know what.
And I think there's a lot of distractions out there too. The big one's compensation, right? I mean, that's a driver. You've got to have something that's within some market reach, so you're not falling behind. I mean, ultimately, you're working. It's no denial. You're not volunteering when you have your career. There's a time and place for that in the community to volunteer, but you're working for a paycheck that's going to pay bills and build wealth and do things that hopefully better impact the community and things you're going to be able to do long term. So that has to be in alignment. But more in our industry is, I think there's a lot of it. People jump around like what I call chasing a check, or chasing something that may or may not ever come to light. And people may think I'm a little aggressive when we have these conversations and reviews. So we do some evaluations with people, and the topic of money comes up. if that's the driving point, it's the root theory, right? Like you got to be more focused on the root than the fruit. If your focus is on the fruit, like I tell people, I want to be an NFL quarterback. I want to make $10 million a year, but I can't do that. I'm not capable, So if your primary driver is money, which is what I call being coin operated, it's never going to be enough. I heard a statistic the other day that people that make over $250,000 a year, more than half still live paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And to me, that's proof that you can always spend more money. So what you can't change is your quality of life. And I really try to tell people that, it's not even from like a recruitment effort. And there's people that I tell, we're giving you a better opportunity because they come to our company and it's part of it. It takes some getting used to early on in your career. You see people that you feel like you've gone after. I know Matt's seen this probably way more than I have, where you're like, this is the guy, I'm getting him, I'm hiring him, he's here. And then for some reason it's not the guy and he moves on and you're like, thank God, like it's a relief. When they naturally move on, I had a guy that at the 90-day review, he quit. I almost jumped up cheering. I was like, man, that's a good thing. If you don't know it, I don't want you to feel like you're held hostage to this company. If this doesn't feel like this is a place to be and you feel comfortable, these are people that you want to be around, this is the right fit, all of our purpose is really in alignment with you, I would much rather you go ahead and give yourself exactly what it needs and go find some place where you do find that.
So I want to take that and segue it to a point in your life, because we did work together, and then you took the courage, the opportunity, and then had the courage to go work with McLeod, and so again that took some grit and there's some decision making there. What was that for you? What allowed you or for others out there that might be looking at a career change or looking at, again, am I a fit here? What was it for you? What allowed you to do that?
Yep. So my transition before being with a bigger commercial company that's now a client of ours that was CBC, PPI, now here at McLeod for the last 10 years. When I made that shift over, the move was because of purely opportunity. And I know that's probably something that people often say that's not true, but it really was driven by that. I was completely happy with where I was before. It was a great environment. It was people I wanted to be around. I was on a path that I wanted to be on. But the component that was missing there that made it an easy decision for me at the time, well, I shouldn't say an easy decision, but not as complicated as it would be, as it was more goal-based. So I ultimately, I don't even remember this was. This was probably back in high school. I had a few goals, and some of them were driven by compensation. A big part of the goal for me was ownership. By the time I was 30 years old, I was either going to go out. Matt and I had conversations about this, way back when. And at a GC license, I was going to go take over the world. I was going to start my own company. I was going to, be my own guy. And so by the time I was 30 years old, I either wanted to own my own company or own part of a company. And miraculously, in my late 20s, this opportunity at McLeod came about. And I, at the moment, didn't have any skin in the game, but that was part of the plan. It was, hey, this is a path for me to accomplish a goal in a different place around still good people that will, at that moment, 10 years ago, the picture that I knew was not on that path there at CBPI, which was fine. It's completely okay. It just wasn't really the way that the company was set up at the time, and I didn't really know. The path here was with my oldest partner, Ed McLeod. He's on a path of retirement. And he was like, man, I need somebody like you and my other partner, Mark, to really step in at some point and be my succession plan. So I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. I'm going to be like a faster path to ownership. So that was the transition, and it was difficult. These are the only two companies that I've been with in the last, 15, I guess, depending on how you kind of look at my internships, 17, 18 years of being kind of in the construction industry. These are the only two companies I've been with. And that was the transition for me that made that a little bit easier, was having that goal in the back of my mind saying, I really want to own a company. I'm either going to do this on my own, which at that time, there's no way I could have done that. It would have been a bad position for me to do it. This opportunity came about. I hit it off with Ed and back to the mentor. And I had a lot of people that I leaned on through that process, somewhat with you, Matt, to help through that transition, because there were some things like, hey, this is, and actually going to those people that ran the company at the time at CPP. I remember the morning upstairs having a conversation where we really talked through and figured that out. They were wholeheartedly supportive. They were like, man, this is once in a lifetime stuff. This is exactly what we would want you to do. You're in position to launch. They didn't say ownership is off the table here, so stay. You got to go do that. But they made it pretty clear that this is a great opportunity for you with a great person, because they knew Ed, and he is a great person. He's got a, he's just one of the most down to earth, caring people that I know. Very service oriented, very service mindset. That's, what he is to the core. We became friends quickly, and fast forward, a couple years later, I've got a shot at ownership, and I've been a partner now for about 6 years. So that was what made the shift, from one career path on a different type of company that could have maybe blossomed into that, who knows when, to how I kind of went off on the McLeod side and became an owner here over the last few years.
So if we kind of take that, and you mentioned in high school, and you called it a goal, I think.
Yeah. Oh,
but back to that, but the reality is you've been purpose driven. It's kind of who you are. From what I'm hearing, it's ingrained in who you are.
Yeah.
Mixed in with a little peppered in with some ADHD, and so you kind of, it might disguise itself sometimes,
Yeah.
but even back then you had those goals, you had that drive, you had the horizon in mind, and you saw it through. And that's pretty awesome, and then obviously life's going to throw you curveballs along the way. I mean, from the miscarriages and relationships and becoming a parent and now being mentors and a father, to your children, and all those things you've continued to build on, it seems like. I mean, I'm seeing this big Lego castle of life experience and development and growth in you. So congratulations, man. That's pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, thanks. I still got a lot of work to do.
We all do, but the key is we're all working on it, right? I mean, that's, Carson, what you've got us here for, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's grit isn't one block, it isn't one piece, it isn't everything, but it is a strong component in how you can be successful and help others.
Yeah, well, it's passion and perseverance for long-term goals is the definition, not just goals or short-term goals. It's the long game. So
one thing you touched on, Matt, with goals, and Casey knows this, I'm sure she's going to listen to this, and you guys should have her on, because she'll probably, maybe even tell you even more about this. But also, like, just how you tick, right? Like, she knows words of affirmation are a big thing with me. So, like, I talk about doing things around the house. And so from a love language perspective, which I'm sure you guys have read the book, but you think that the people that you love, have that same language. So, like, I'll go wash her car, it'll go unnoticed. I think it's awesome. I'm like, hey, if I wash the Suburban, it takes so long to do this. But what I realize is that I've got to find a way, when it comes to grit, I've got to find a way to figure out to have some internal affirmations. And so it's thing is so simple as the other night I'm washing dishes. I was going to use this. I'm glad I remembered, because I thought I was going to forget this. I'm washing dishes. I'm kind of like, man, washing dishes, this isn't fun. Kids are screaming in the background. I'm trying to get them down. Life's happening. And I was starting to get kind of like, man, I'm done. This, like, and I'm thinking to myself, she used every dish in every pot. I'm like, it never ends. I get all the dishes. I'm going to the sink. I'm going down. I'm like, I look over. There's a pot. I'm like, oh, what's now? Oh, there's the high chair. And I was like, this is endless dishes. I'm about to lose it. And I started, like, internally, like the fishbowl effect, feeling bad for myself. Like, why isn't she washing these dishes? Kind of going crazy to some degree. And deep down, I thought about myself, and I'm like, you know what? Again, back to kind of that choice and that internal affirmation. I have the grit. This has to get done. It's only going to get worse. These dishes are going to stack up, as trivial as a dish example may sound. But it gave me an opportunity, and I just changed my mindset and said, you know what? I'm going to enjoy washing these dishes, which it's a great place to wash dishes. I'm looking out my kitchen window, looking back at a couple acres of property. We've got a pool there. Crack the door open, you can hear the birds chirping, but I had a choice there. I could have really been out of shape, probably created some chaos, and been like, Casey, help out with the dishes. But it was no, these dishes really suck. I don't want to do it, but now I'm going to find a way that I'm actually, in a weird way, going to enjoy it. And I just changed my mindset, and it's hard to do in the moment. It's a lot more difficult to do than ever. And I think that's where really kind of putting that grit into action, where you're just like, a lot of times in your head, you have a choice to make. You can either be upset or look for somebody to pat you on the back or whatever, or you can just say, you know what, I need to just buckle down and get these silly dishes done, and not get upset about it, and take something that may have just, could have at the moment turned into a lot bigger issue, and enjoy what I'm doing. So when you said affirmations, it just triggered in me to tell you that story.
Yeah, it takes a lot of discipline to shift your perspective. And that's how Andy Farina says, the story you tell yourself. It's just the same line. It's you can internalize a lot of misery, or you can choose to turn the table on it.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. That's what I was going to say also. And you said trivial, and but it's back to like over servicing your spouse. That providing more service, right? Never like don't keep score at it, but that's part of that, and it might be trivial, but it's part of that long play success of your relationship, and having that grit for the long term, understanding that this little amount of pain can either disrupt or get better. Yeah. Right. And so awesome, man.
Yeah. It's an investment.
Right.
The ROI,
you put a coin in the bank, baby.
Yeah. The ROI may not be realized for a while, but it's out there. It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, time flies when you're having fun. It's been 58 minutes already. So I don't want to take any more of your time, Erik. And I feel like we could do this all day. We probably could. Maybe we just need to have a 2.0 at some point.
Yeah, I like that, man. I appreciate you guys having me on here and be able to kind of go through some of that stuff. And I agree. I mean, there's a lot of different angles that the conversation can go, and putting some more focus mainly today on kind of family and our journey has been, it's been good. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. Maybe next time we'll do it in the MGT podcast studio all together.
That's right.
Seats open. Waiting on you.
Apparently I had to bring my shotgun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But what people can't see there just listening to this are the grouses on the wall.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not because of Erik that I'm bringing my shotgun.
Yep. You got to put some fine-looking animals on the wall. That's another thing that we recently got our boys for their birthdays. We got some birds on the wall in their room too. It's shocked that Casey would let it happen, but I gave in.
It's because you did the dishes.
That's right. But nobody's keeping score. Don't keep score.
No, not keeping score. All right, man. Thanks,
right.
Erik.
Well, we sure appreciate it.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Grit Growth Podcast with host Carson Stefanelli and Matt Webster. We sincerely hope you were inspired by the interview and found at least one useful tool or tactic to implement in your own life. Now, level up by taking immediate action. Apply one lesson learned to your life as soon as possible to make sure it sticks. Post it and tag us to increase accountability. You can join the Grit Growth movement to restore American grit to its former glory by building an unprecedented force of conquerors, both in business and in life, at www.gritgrowth.org and wherever you're active on the socials. Please also drop a rating and review on your podcast app, as it goes a long way in helping the movement gain traction. Now, don't let this inspiration go to waste. Commit to conquer. Lead your life. Leave a legacy. Gather your grit and go get after it.